welcome to Sobre Mesa, a podcast from our table to yours. We are your hosts. My name is Viviana Uribe. I was born in Venezuela and now I live here in Chicago.
I'm Tatiana Bustamante. I was born in Miami, Florida, and I am Mexican and Peruvian, or as I like to say, Mexaruvian.
Oh, cute.
Hey.
My name is Alix Road. I was born in the Chicago suburbs. I am half Colombian, first gen.
My name's Jalbelly Guzman. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island, Dominican parents, and I'm first gen.
Amazing. And we are Sobre Mesa. Guys, it's the first episode.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being here. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, literally. We have been trying to do this for months.
Quite some time. This has been in the works for a minute now.
No, we're here now.
We're here.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Cheers. The pandemic really, it slows everybody down.
It grinded our gears, that's for sure.
Yeah, all of you, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, here we are.
Yes.
A little bit about us. So we have a company called Mi Latinidad. And Tatie, why don't you talk about the beginning of Mi Latinidad and how we came to be?
Yeah, it sort of was born out of this frustration with a lack of representation, or accurate representation is probably a better way to put it. Especially in the education system that we were part of, and in the city in general, we just felt like we could do better, we could do more for ourselves. So we decided to sort of put on a little show. We had a cabaret style showcase of Latinx artists, which was super, super fun. And it was a total success, and we're like, why don't we turn this into a long-term thing, And so now we're doing all these, spin-off projects off of that one thing that we started with.
Yes.
So now it's podcasts, and we're talking about, all these other possibilities and cooking shows and stuff, which is so exciting. Yeah. But basically, our main goal is to promote Latinx artists in Chicago and all over the country. So we're open to it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to the conversations. Yeah.
I think we didn't realize when we started Mi Latinidad and the cabaret as a whole how big of a community would relate to the issue that we were having.
Yes. Absolutely.
Or be interested in
learning,
helping and learning
and hearing us out.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
So with that, when the pandemic started, we were like, well, live performance is kaput for as much as we know for the foreseeable future, right? But we still wanted to do something that was still benefiting the community and benefiting our own interests outside of theater, outside of live performance. What do we like to listen to? What do we like to do? How do we like to relate to Latinx people online? And so we thought a podcast would be the perfect way to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that it's definitely a communal table, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's invited.
Yes. And we want to hear as much from you as you hear from us. This company is all about discussion and having those conversations, the hard tables, hence our name.
Sobre Mesa. And that's really where the name Sobre Mesa came from our table to yours, especially in the Latin community. People like to share and break bread with food. I think actually all communities have that. Yeah. Culturally, a lot of communities really relate over that. And so we wanted to do something where you kind of feel like you're sitting in the table with us, chatting, drinking coffee, drinking wine, whatever it is. You know what I mean? And then you can discuss these topics with us, bring your thoughts to the table, and also know that we are not perfect, right?
Yeah.
We are all femmes. Yeah. We are all we all cis. Identify as Latina, cis, gender, females. So
we do not cover all.
We do not cover
diaspora anything.
By no means.
We're not the ambassadors
could
of
we
Latin
even
America.
try?
Yeah, we cannot be the voice of the entire Latinx community. We cannot be the voice of just even the entire city of Chicago or anything. But we want to bring as many people to this table to be able to do that.
Yeah, to make their voices heard.
Absolutely.
We want this to be a space for people to be able to walk in and have their voices heard by a community.
Absolutely.
And that's
and it's about the individual experience, right? Yes, so we came up with Mi Latinidad as our title, our name,
for the
company itself, and for the shows that we were doing, because we are tied together by this Latinx heritage, by this Latinidad, as we say. But it's so important to understand that each individual person has their own experience with that, and that means something very different to every single individual that it applies to.
Yeah.
So it is super, super, super personal, and we want to celebrate that, not shy away from it. We don't want to speak for anybody else. No.
Right.
I speak for myself. I know you speak for yourselves, and we want you to speak for yourself as well.
Yeah, and even though we are all friends and we all have pretty much the same face value of things, the same moral compass, if you will, there's going to be things that we disagree on, too.
Absolutely.
Because there's
disagree all the time.
Yeah, well, and there's going to be things... Yeah, we already disagree. We're already beefing all the time.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, and I mean, also, like, as things come to the light more and more so, there's going to be topics where it's like, well, 3 months ago, I thought this was the way that I felt about this, but now I'm not so sure, or now I completely feel the opposite way.
Room for growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you get new information, you might change your mind about something. Absolutely. And if someone from a different community says something like, listen, I don't agree with that, like, we're here to listen to that. Yeah, we're here to take that in, take into consideration, and it may change our minds. So please, like, tweet at us, you know, whatever you think. We want to hear what you think.
How you feel.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah.
So, sobre esta mesa, we love and we respect, and we will tolerate no hate from anyone whatsoever. But we're just glad to be here.
Yeah,
absolutely. So thank you for coming to our table.
Yes,
bringing us to yours.
The first topic in question is what the term Latinidad really means for all of us personally. And like, what do we identify as? And in later episodes, we'll get into the different topics, the different names under this like Latin American umbrella that we somehow fit in somehow. But like, me personally, I always identified as Latina, but seeing as like, I came from Venezuela, I thought of myself as Venezuelan first. And it wasn't until I moved here that people were like, what is that? So you have to kind of be like, oh, okay, well then I guess I'm from Latin America. I guess I'm Latina. I guess I'm from South America, if you will. You never hear people really identifying as South American. No one
never heard that. But you identify as American are people from the United States, which is so interesting.
Because like there's no other American.
But you hear Caribbean people be like, oh, I'm Caribbean. But that's because they don't fit under the Latin American umbrella. Yeah. Some of them don't. Yeah. Like Haitians don't. Jamaicans don't.
Haitians are technically Latinos.
Right.
Oh.
But a lot of Haitians don't identify as Latinos because they don't feel accepted by
haven't been accepted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
that's
exclusion there.
What does that go for, like, Jamaicans? Or, like, because we were talking about Rihanna, my queen. Our queen.
Collectively.
She does collectively, right? And she's from Barbados, but like, does that identify her as Latina?
That's a really
not
good
necessarily,
question.
right?
I don't know.
She identifies as Caribbean.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always say. Is I feel like a lot of those islands are like it's not even necessarily like Latinidad. It's like Caribeña.
We'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
Let's start that conversation.
Totally. Yes, absolutely.
For me personally, I have like started to adopt the Latinx term as of recent. I'd say in the past 2 years, it's pretty new for me because I also grew up saying Latina. And I think the reason I sort of found it convenient, problems aside, because I acknowledge those issues and I think they're totally valid, and they're making me like a little uncomfy, and I'm glad because we should be talking about the problems behind that term. But for me, it was convenient because if someone asked me like, oh, what are you? When they see like here brown and they're like, what are you? I'm like, does that mean?
I'm like,
where are you from?
I'm like, what are you?
Question. Miami. Who are you? Yeah. They'll ask me where I'm from and I'm always like super, spiteful. Yes. Like, I'm from Miami, Florida. Right?
Exactly. It's like when
it's its own nationality at this point.
I feel like when somebody seems really well intentioned, if somebody comes to me and asks, where are you from? And they seem like they're genuinely interested in getting to know more about me. I'll tell you all about my entire story, how I ended up here.
It's the tone. It's the tone.
Yes,
you can tell.
I don't like the guessing game.
You can tell when it's racist.
If you're like, where are you from? I say Providence, Rhode Island. Try me one more time.
And have you guys ever gotten the what are you?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Immediately object, not like a person.
And that's why I find Latinx like convenient because if I say like I'm Latin American, that makes it sound like I'm not American, but I am American.
Yes.
Like, I'm fucking American, like I just am.
Yes.
And then I say American and it sounds like I'm not Latin American, so it feels like I'm denying an entire side of me and my heritage and my upbringing. So for me, like Latinx was convenient because I could sort of settle on that term to encompass both. And since it's specifically a term that sort of grew here a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
that's fair.
It feels American and Latin American at the same time. So that's how I conveniently use it, even though I understand that, like, that might not be all it is.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Absolutely.
I understand that other people have different relationships with it.
For me, the Latinx term, I also recently adopted, but I know that obviously all of these issues came out with it, and I honestly adopted it just to be more inclusive to the non-binary community.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, right. And then that's like the non-binary community within the States, because then the non-binary community outside of the States was like, we don't understand what this means. Or like part of it at least.
Yeah.
Right? And then I was like, oh man, this is like opening up a new wave of things that I had no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now I'm just kind of like back to, like, I use Latina and Latinx interchangeably, because since I identify as she, her, I'm like, I'll just say Latina if it applies, but I also will accept Latinx. I used to say Hispanic.
Yeah.
That used to be like,
but that is
the blanket term.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like,
places.
exactly. I feel like that's kind of a dead term these days.
It is.
It kind of is. Yeah. I mean, I remember living in Florida. There were a lot of like, I used to go to the Hispanic Heritage Festival. You know
exactly.
what I mean?
The Hispanic market, if you will.
Hispanic Heritage.
Absolutely.
No,
it's
just supermarket, if you will.
It's like half of one month and half of the other.
Oh,
Nobody knows when it is, which is bogus.
Black History Month is the shortest month of the year, so they're going to be
also
bogus.
mad disrespectful.
Yeah, mad.
They're just trying to put us all down.
Yeah. If they're gonna put black people down, like, and they've been here way longer, like,
we stood no chance.
Yeah, we stood no chance. Absolutely.
But like, if it's the month, like, why not start at the beginning?
Because they don't care.
No, they don't.
And because October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which breast cancer does need awareness.
That's an important
issue.
But people of all races and creeds and nationalities get breast cancer. I'll say it.
Just say it.
Yeah, all right.
They care more because white people also get breast cancer.
Yeah,
and I think it also is just like, those conversations, those like titles are happening like in the U.S.
Yes.
You know, and like they don't care.
No,
it's a collective. No. But going back to what you were saying about like gender non-conforming people, I've been seeing as opposed to Latinx, because that's also why I started using it. I've been seeing Latine coming up, where like the gender neutral E is being attached, where like the A or the O used to be. Because and I totally hear it when people are like, the X does not like exist in the Spanish language. Like it's not like it's,
and it is a gendered language.
Yes,
unfortunately.
I think about that so much. Like, I genuinely have not met a Latin person of any sort of place that is gender non-conforming. I have yet to meet a person who I could pick their brain. Not that that's like...
We should get someone on the show.
Anybody that identifies as gender non-conforming and is Latin American is American and speak English predominantly that I know. I've never met a person from the mainland that is gender non-conforming.
How do you go about speaking about that person? Like, what is a gender neutral pronoun in Spanish? I don't know any. Like, how do you go about that?
I don't think they're question mark in my mind. Down there.
Maybe are they using the plural? We'd have to look it up.
So I've been hearing like as like ella, ello, like they've been using eye.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're really like taking the E and like putting it at the end. Yeah, they're going all the way.
So I'm wrong. They are embracing.
No, there's this one person that I follow on TikTok, and they they work like in politics and stuff. So I think they work with like the Latin American consulate in the U.S. and like in their home country too. And so they make. Now I know they really
get into it. Shit.
Yeah. No, but they make all of these videos, and I follow them because I was like, okay, this is stuff that we're talking about. I don't have like someone in my personal life that is in that experience, so I want to like learn about that. And they make all of these videos.
True. Well, we have to remember as well, and this is the case with like everything that we talk about, is that there are people that are not at the privilege to even have this knowledge that might identify that as these people if they had this knowledge.
Absolutely. Or the privilege to like worry about these kinds of things.
Exactly. My favorite quote by my queen, the playwright Cherry Moroga. She's a Chicana playwright. Love her. Queer. I've known about her since I was 17. Obsessed with her. But she, my favorite quote by her is that she says, "When you are not physically starving is when you have the chance to have emotional starvation." So a lot of these people that we may reference or talk about that are in need of this knowledge don't even have the time or emotional or physical capacity to worry about this because they are so put down by this.
We stand at such a point of privilege to be able to worry about these things, these social issues that don't even affect us, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, all of us are cis women. None of us identify as gender
nonconforming. All of us went to a private institution.
Yes,
all of us. Yeah.
We are all college educated. We have reached a level of privilege that is truly not very common amongst Latin women.
Amongst Latino women, of course.
Yeah, we are like the American dream that are
essentially,
absolutely.
And we're still out here broke.
And we still.
So that's the sad part.
No coin at all.
Bankrupt. Got no money on my card.
Right.
Nothing.
The tea is.
You're totally right though, and that's like a thing with feminism too. You know, like there's some women out here that are like, we cannot worry about these small like social
little things,
like when we're literally starving and need money for basic human needs.
And that just really gets me because identification is so important, and it should be just as important as the actual ways of living, like the means of living. But we can't even worry about that until people have the means of living.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Damn.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Would you like to break down what Mi Latinidad means for you?
Yes. I know that I growing up as a little brown girl in Rhode Island was very often the only person of color in the room, right? Mm-hmm. So although I am a light-skinned Latina with light eyes and a lot of white privilege because my proximity to whiteness is way, way closer than a lot of my darker-skinned counterparts, I know that I wasn't necessarily like discriminated against blatantly, but there was a lot of just like othering that happened in my childhood. I definitely always felt like I was on the outside of normalcy of any kind. And like my brother, who was darker skinned and like super embracing his how do I even say it? I don't even know. But like I feel like my brother was way more accepted in his peer group than I was. And I was wondering I always wondered what that was about. And
do you think it has anything to do with like gender?
I was about to say that.
Most definitely. And also you have to remember
I also think
sports.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is that my brother, particularly in school, was very involved in sports and all those extracurricular activities while I was in the dance studio downtown with the other Hispanic girls.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the day, I identify as Latina first and foremost because that's how I felt my entire life, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like the term does apply to me, but I do want to be as thoughtful as possible.
As inclusive as possible,
to anybody else who... Hello.
Her earring fell off.
Put her back in.
It happens.
Okay. I'm like...
As you're talking, like...
Come on, girl. I'm like, who are you gonna fight? Who are you taking off your earrings for?
We're gonna throw hands right now.
It's like a TikTok, you're like getting ready and talking issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
Shit.
Anyways. I definitely also felt like for first gen people, like I felt so privileged in the sense that I grew up in a house where my mother was a flight attendant, right?
Yeah.
So we got to go back to La Isla a lot as kids. Yeah. We got to go back for every single vacation we had. I spent entire summers at a summer camp with the natives. I felt very immersed in my culture, and then coming home, I never felt that sense of community that I did feel when I was on the island, right? So I definitely have always identified Latina, but if we're getting deep into it, I'm Dominican American. That's those are my people. That's what I identify with. I feel good about that.
It's interesting, especially the first gen or second gen struggle or just identification with the mainland, because me being immigrant straight off the boat, yes, I got to grow up in Venezuela when I was 6, and then we lived in Florida, so I was always around Latino people because
that's Florida.
That is Florida. But then again, because of the immigration process, it took us 5-6 years for us to get citizenship, which is blessed. That is a blessing. And we were never once like in need of papers. Like it was always done like very legally. So that was a blessing within itself. But there is a time period within the green card process, within the the citizenship process, where you can't go back to the mainland.
Yeah.
So there were like 4 years where I didn't go at all. And there was formative years because you're a kid.
Yeah.
And then when I did get to go, I was like a completely different kid, and it was also a completely different country than when I was there. So it's weird because most of the things that I have from Venezuela came from being in Florida because there were so many Venezuelan immigrants in Florida.
Yeah.
Right.
So I never felt like, but then when I went there, I was like, oh my God, like I am so American compared to these people. It's very weird.
Yeah. I've always felt because I am the only mixed one of us, mixed white. I'm half white and then half Colombian, and I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. So like Midwest is
she's wild.
Yeah, she's a wild girly. But like I remember growing up feeling also very like other. Like I barely saw other brown, black people around me. Like it was just an overwhelming like sea of white people around me, and I was in like a really small farm town, and like I didn't know that my family was like different necessarily than like the typical family where like you have, or at least what people like imagine the typical
nuclear family.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like
conventional.
My dad's always been white, and his family's always been white, and my mom's always been brown, and her family's always been brown. So like until I got to a certain age when I was in school, like friends would come over and stuff, and they'd be like, "Your mom has an accent," and I'd be like, huh?
You don't even hear it.
No,
when it's your mom.
and I would be like, I'd ask my sister, would be like, does mom have an accent? She'd be like, no. No. And then I was like, no, she doesn't. And she kind of does now, but like, I only know that after like years of listening to like
of being aware of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of like
No, totally.
looking for it. And like,
I have the same experience with my mom,
and like other people like saying things to me like, oh, I didn't expect your mom to look like that, or I didn't expect your dad to look like that, or or like when I'm with
unnecessary, like
no,
why?
of course, like,
What does it matter?
don't
Oh
comment.
my God.
Yeah.
And like I have so many cousins because all of my mom's siblings also married white American partners.
Yeah.
So like I have cousins that look like me. I have cousins that are very pale, like light brown eyes. They look white. They look like Polish, German, like very European.
Yeah.
And then like I talk to them and they tell me like they wish they looked more like me because they feel detached from like their Colombian roots because like our country as a whole doesn't see Latin people. They see them like as one thing, which is like me, and like they have a hard time they have a hard time like understanding like Afro Latinas and stuff that because like they literally have their soul set in the one mindset of like every Latinx person is a Mexican to them.
Yes.
And
that's what I've learned the most about.
That's what I was going to say.
Representation. That was literally what I was about to ask you.
Move-
Do you feel like growing up here that how many times were you asked where in Mexico you're from?
Yes.
Or do you speak Mexican?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Someone asked me freshman year of college if I had tacos for Thanksgiving dinner, and I was like, tacos. I was like,
my God.
Yes, you should have said yes with turkey in them.
Honestly, I was
Turkey
like
tacos.
just confused in general, but I didn't realize until moving to the Midwest how they, like, I don't want to say they as a whole because that's not true, but like the Midwest, really the main Latin American exposure they get is to Mexican people.
Yeah.
And of course when the media,
the majority,
the majority of immigrants here are Mexican, and then when all you hear in the media is how terrible Mexican people are, then not only do you associate all people, like all Mexican people, with terrible fake media, but then you also like do that with all Latin American people, and you assume that they're all one way, when it's like, what? And it's specifically Mexican culture is so rich in its history that it's very different from the rest of South American culture because it's Central America.
No, absolutely crazy. The amount of times that people told me that I was Mexican, like I would say like, because when people ask me like, what are you? Or, you know, what are you, honestly? I always say Colombian and white. And like, I sometimes go into the depth of like German, Irish, Scottish. Like, I'll break
get into it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to break it this side down. I'm going to break it down.
Break it down. Get into it. Absolutely.
But that's how I've always felt because like, I don't know, growing up in like a mainly white space. And all of my mom's family is like spread across the country. Like we're not together all the time. So like I didn't have my abuelita like living in the house with me or like a couple like down the street or anything. So like I didn't grow up speaking Spanish, and like that was always something too, where like people would be like, oh well, you're Spanish, but like you don't speak Spanish, so you're not. And there'd be like these white kids being like, you're not Colombian.
Yeah.
Like, bitch, what do you know? Like,
me?
Yeah. How well do you speak German, Tyler?
Yeah.
Do you? No.
It's like I'll say it, the Italians can be 12 generations separated from Italy.
Yeah.
And they're I'm full-blooded Italian.
Yeah. I love that though. I ain't even mad. I do love it.
Please do it.
Is admirable.
But we should be able to do that too.
Exactly.
It's like it should be for us too.
It's
absolutely.
I love seeing you guys too, because I always think since I came here so young, right? Even though I'm not first gen, sometimes I feel like I kind of am because I came here so young.
First gen,
yeah, exactly. But then I'm like, oh my god, my kids are gonna be the ones that are first gen, and so I am making it a big point to have that Latinx or like that Latin heritage be such a huge part of their upbringing.
Absolutely.
Which is like not something I'm worried about now, but I thought like the older I would get and the more assimilated into American culture I would get, I would like just lose that.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about it now.
I mean, we got a whole ass company.
Yeah, exactly. We have a whole ass company. I got my girls. Well, also because randomly enough, even though there were all of these like Latin people, these Latin American people in Florida where I grew up, I just happened to be the one that was never friends with them for long term because I was Afro-Latina, and because I was from Venezuela, which I was one of the first people. We came in 2004. There were not that many Venezuelan people. I would like lie and say I was Puerto Rican because I didn't feel like explaining myself to people, which is so sad now. I look back and I'm like, girl, come on, we hate to see it. But so for the longest time, I didn't have a lot of like Latin American friends, and it's weird now that I'm in the Midwest that I find all these Latin American friends. But I think it's because I found it so much in like my family and like my mom's friends. They were all Latin American and blah 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 blah. That I was always just like, oh, it's fine if like I don't have that, or if I have only like one Latin American friend. And then I got to college and I was like, I have nobody.
And then we found each other.
And then we found each other.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm waiting until I can ditch you guys.
That's a whole other thing.
Like,
no, but I felt the same way where I was like, my family was the only like Latin community that I have, and I so yearned for that because my mom came here when she was very young, so like she was taught to it, like her parents told her to assimilate and stuff. So like it's not that she's not proud, it's just like
no, it's hard.
It's hard when you're not growing up there for most of your childhood. Like you don't have that same connection to the mainland, and so like for her to teach me those things, especially when my dad is not Colombian, it's like a whole other thing. And I was so thankful that like Tatiana that came up with the idea for Mi Latinidad at our college, because it was like an eye opener to me, where I was just like, finally, these people that like are my home, that like I have the same kind of like background with, you know.
You're making me emotional.
Oh, girl.
I'm so happy that we're here.
Honestly, it was an emotional experience for me, because I was like, I finally feel like I have like my people, like people that understand where I'm coming from, because most of my life it was just like, oh my god, I just feel like a broken record. I'm saying the same thing over and over again, and no one's getting it.
Especially in theater spaces, right?
Yes.
So we're all actors. If you're just now joining
theater
us,
background.
If you haven't yet to meet us, we are all
BFAs.
actresses. We all have BFAs.
Hire us, HBO Max.
We're here.
We'd love to see you. Euphoria season 3. I'm available.
I'll say that in our experiences as theater artists, as actors, right? Speaking for myself, I was often the darkest person in the room.
Yes,
right?
literally always.
Like, and I'm very, very light-skinned. So that should probably never happen.
I feel
That's the case with musical theater.
Issue.
You know what was my truth? My truth is that I was the one Afro-Latina in a room of black people doing a black play.
Yes.
And I would be like, I don't know this history, and I feel like I'm like not supposed to be here.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
And that's a whole
that's a whole nother thing.
No, we have to
That's
have
a whole nother episode
where we
girl.
talk about like not feeling enough of either
Of
thing.
anything.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not Latin enough, you're not
Yeah.
white enough, you're not black enough. Like this whole like
Yeah.
concept of like enough, you know, and we have to have a whole episode.
Yeah,
I'm not even getting into that.
It's
so
too much.
It's so
It's too much
deeply
to get
rooted.
into,
But
yeah.
but going back to that, in the theater industry, it is interesting how Latin Americans are kind of like treated also because there's not that many Latin American stories in theater.
Yeah.
Specifically
Especially
musical theater, which is
Yeah.
commercial theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The most
it's
highly
capitalist.
commercialized
Yeah,
theater,
it's,
right?
it's capitalist because like
Yeah.
I love to see
And it's
the niche
elitist.
like
Mhm.
it
It's
is
very
elitist.
elitist.
It's the golfing of entertainment. Like it is elitist. It's
No,
facts.
they say
Comparison.
this,
No
yeah.
cap. It's
It's made
facts.
by the poor for the rich, and
Yes.
then film and television is made by the rich for the poor. Like
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
like,
Correct.
that's what they
So
say,
it's like one
yeah.
of those things where it's like I would love to see
Yeah.
this devised show that cost me $50 and I get to see someone like run across a room. I love that. I love it. But that's not what people are going to be able to see
Yeah.
in those marginalized communities.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
because
not.
the theater's also, it's just not accessible, like,
No.
to the artists themselves, but
No.
definitely not the communities
No.
that
Oh my
would
God, no.
benefit, that would
And
benefit
nowadays,
from it.
it's one of those things, especially now, like post-pandemic, I'm very interested to see what this is going to be because now I'm like, for one, am not always going to be comfortable taking that $250 stipend for like 250 hours of my pay, like
all
my
been there.
time, my
We've all
time
done
and
it.
my coin.
We've all done it.
And we've all
Not
done
gonna
it.
name names.
Yeah,
And it's
because
like one of
they
those
know
things where
there's
I also
Yeah.
am no longer gonna feel okay with being like, oh yeah, I'll pay $5 to go see this little show.
Exactly.
That's awful.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Like, no.
the trade-off is just not okay.
It's just not
anymore.
okay.
And after this pandemic, it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much. But then it's like, damn, I can't go pay $50 every time I want to see something
Yeah.
either.
No.
So like there has to be
But
some.
that's the
Yeah.
whole point. Is like it's a cycle. Like
It's a
we don't get
diaspora.
paid enough by the theater industry
Uh-huh.
to go pay enough for the shows in the theater
I know.
industry.
If I get another call from the theater being like, do you want to donate? I'm like, do you want to donate to me?
I would love
What about
donation.
my checking
Sorry.
account?
Yeah, I'm like, where's
Check out
my
my GoFundMe.
coin? I would love to see it.
Yeah.
How about you cast me in something and then we could talk?
Yeah, like
honestly.
I will give $1 of my check if you give me a check.
Yeah. At all.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Period.
Negotiating.
Yeah.
Period.
Well,
Yeah.
with that, that's
With
us.
that,
Yeah.
Now you know.
I feel like
Now
We're
you
chatty.
know.
we are chatting.
We
We're
are
allowed.
chatty. But yeah, welcome to Sobre Mesa. That's who we are.
Yeah.
We will be talking with a lot of Chicago local people, especially in the entertainment industry, because that's our background. But
Yeah,
also anything that you all want us to talk about, any topics in particular. Obviously, we have things in mind. We have a lot to say. We're very opinionated.
We want to hear
but-
from other people too.
Yeah, but we want to hear from you all too, and hear what you guys want to talk about, what you all want to hear from us, and any specific topics, any specific businesses. We will have these links on our website in which you can connect with us in anything that you've been seeing, any businesses you support in the Chicago area. We will definitely check them out. All across the country, we will definitely do our best to reach out in which way we can. But in the meantime, look out for us on our Instagram, on all of our socials, and our website that's coming out soon.
Yes, we're doing a full relaunch. We're very excited.
Yes,
about
and this
it.
is for our prior fans. We love you.
Yes,
We
thank
see
you
you.
for all your
for all the
support.
support.
Yes,
Yeah.
All
we're
of this
so
time.
blessed.
Yes,
Yeah.
at milatinidad.org,
Yes.
you can submit your work. So, like, if you want us to feature you in something, whether it be on our social media, we can talk. Submit your work there. And also, if you have a business, if you're a Latinx
Yes.
business owner,
Yes.
let us know because we will promote.
Yes,
we're
actually,
gonna-
the first flex that I'm gonna go ahead and
Oh,
give right
please,
now,
plug
this,
in,
this
plug in,
beautiful
plug in.
top. If you
Yes.
enjoy this nice pattern, check out poshpalmastyles.com. We're gonna put a link to their website on our website so that y'all
Yes.
can go ahead and check. It's actually my sister and my
Her
sister-in-law's
beautiful sister.
brand, and it is a wonderful, wonderful company that y'all should check out.
Jefas as hell.
Yes.
Boss
Jefa
lady.
energy.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
very much that.
Yes.
So
So
definitely
check out our
that out.
community resource pages and our artist highlight pages at milatinidad.org.
And we will see y'all soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.